Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Joy Meets World. I'm Joy Yugi, and on this podcast, I am sharing my adventures traveling around the US. And right now, I'm mostly just doing all of the US national parks because I love the national parks. And today's place is Carlsbad, New Mexico, which is the home of Carlsbad Caverns National Park, which is a cave. And right now, I'm in the laundry room of my Airbnb because it was the smallest space that I could find with the best light. So here we are today. I just got back from getting a pedicure, which I needed, but they butchered my manicure job. For any ladies listening, you know how terrible that is. They just peeled off my nail polish instead of letting it soak. It was a little bit painful, but on to about the actual trip. So my dog, my 5-year-old foxhound Quincy, and I are on this road trip together. And the last place we came from was Guadalupe Mountains National Park in Texas. Now, that national park is really just, I think, right across the border is New Mexico and Carlsbad Caverns. And then Carlsbad is about 45 minutes from the border of Texas. And the caverns are actually like 10 to 15 miles going back the other way towards Texas, which I did not know. And you actually have to drive uphill to get to the caverns. And then once you're there, you walk downhill to get to the entrance, and then way, way downhill to get all the way into the caves. So Carlsbad, the town of Carlsbad, there's really not much to speak of. Probably wouldn't come back, honestly. There's not much here. There's a cute little brewery that I went to called Guadalupe Mountains Brewing Company. They had great pizza, great beer. I enjoyed it, but that was kind of the only highlight of the town or the city of Carlsbad itself. Now, the caverns, which again are 10 to 20 miles outside of town, were super cool. Once you get to the entrance, it's like a 5-mile drive to actually get to the visitor center, and it is a winding road, and it's mostly uphill. I went on a beautiful January day. It was like 70 to 75 degrees, sunny, warm, dry. It was lovely. Now I did have to RSVP. And I don't know if this is a COVID thing or just they're getting an influx of visitors. I'm not really sure, but you have to save your spot. And I would do it well beforehand. I think I did it 2 weeks before actually coming. I saved a spot. And it's, I think, $1 to reserve a spot, and then you have to pay the park entrance fee. Now, my sweet friends, Julie and Nathan Tilson, got me a National Parks pass. And so I just present that pass. It's like a little card, credit card sized and feeling item. And you just present that at the gate or at the desk, and you get into that park without paying the fee, essentially, which is really nice, and I am thankful for it. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Carlsbad Caverns before I get into my own experience, and I have this great informative Life magazine, America's National Parks, and it gives just like a small synopsis of each park. So Carlsbad Caverns, of course, is in New Mexico. It was established in 1930. It's over 46,000 acres, and it gets about 441,000 visitors a year. So when a shallow inland sea from the Permian era 250 million years ago vanished, the remaining acidic groundwater seeped through the ground, dissolved the limestone below, and created underground chambers. Carlsbad's dark and dank subterranean land under the Chihuahuan Desert is home to some 1 million Brazilian free-tailed bats, which streak out in search of insects as the sun sets. Some of the cavern's known spaces, like the Lechuguilla Cave, span as much as 140 miles, and when light shines on the chambers, it reveals glistening gypsum, lemon yellow sulfur deposits, and bulbous mounds of calcite. The most awe-inspiring interior is the cathedral-like big room. It measures 2,000 feet, and it's carpeted with soaring stalagmites, including the enormous giant dome. From the chamber's 255-foot high ceilings hangs a riot of pointy stalactites. So if you are like me and are constantly confused and can never get the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite right, stalactites come from the ceiling and stalagmites come from the ground. I remember it because like tights, as in like tights that women wear, they get runs in them and water runs down. So tights run, water runs, stalactites. I don't know if that helps you at all, but that's how I finally decided to remember. Stalactites are from the ceiling, stalagmites are from the floor. In the big room hangs a formation named the chandelier. Every day at sunset, innumerable Brazilian free-tailed bats flee the cave to dine on insects. So a note about the bats. You can go to the park and reserve a spot for like this sunset watching, essentially. And there's like a big amphitheater built into the rock, like basically at the entrance of the cave. And so you can go there and like reserve a spot at sunset and watch all the bats come out at sunset, like a jillion bats. For me, I hate bats, and there is no thrill in doing that or seeing that. And so that was not something I opted into, but if that's something that sounds thrilling and amazing to you, you can do that, and you can reserve a spot to do that. So going into the caverns, first of all, I get claustrophobic. So there was that, but you know, this was going to be well worth any claustrophobia I was going to feel because it's super cool. It's a national park. So it's it's 700 plus feet down into the deepest part of the cave, which is known as the big room, which we talked about. And it's all pretty much switchbacks the whole way. It's a pretty steep walk down. You have to go pretty slowly. Super dark in the cave. The National Park Service has done a great job of like putting dim lights all along the path, and they've lit up some of the like features, like the stalactites and stalagmites. They've lit up some of that stuff, so you can definitely see. I would say bring a flashlight because that'll be just an added light to have and a good light source. Path is super easy. It's super smooth. It's paved, and there are railings. So that's not too much to worry about. And they have plaques every couple, 50 to 100 feet, just telling you about what you're seeing, which is nice and it's cool. You can definitely take photos in the cave. The first thing that hit me when I walked into the cave was that it smelled like pee. It's a really disgusting smell, and it kind of just hits you in the face. No one had prepared me for that, and I'm assuming it's because of the bats and just their smell. I could be wrong. Sadly, I got used to it by the time I was done with my hour trek through the cave, but that was one of the parts I did not like the most. Also, they encourage you to use hushed voices or not to talk in the cave just because it echoes so much. And so it was eerie, especially in the parts where, you were by yourself, not around other hikers. So that was creepy. There's one part that's completely dark. They just basically leave completely dark. It's probably like 50 feet from like where a dim light is to another dim light. Like you're walking through the dark. And I was there by myself, and that was creepy, and that's where the claustrophobia started hitting in. I just had to start and try and focus on walking through that, and then just keeping focused on all the different cool things in the cave that there were to see and distracting myself, and that helped a lot. I was able to get through it. The other things about the cave, there were rangers along the way in the cave, so that was really nice. You don't have to hike back up if you don't want to. I did not want to just because I was already pretty much at my limit as far as being underground. So they have an elevator and like a mini visitor center at the bottom of the cave, which is kind of cool. And then the elevator will take you right up to the top visitors center within 30 seconds. So that was nice to have that as an option. I would say the best parts about Carlsbad Caverns is that, again, I love the weather. I love the weather out here in the Southwest. I loved getting to see the stalactites and the stalagmites. They were really cool. So I'm from the Northeast. I grew up in the Northeast, so I'm used to seeing icicles and, they break off. And these look like icicles. Like the stalactites look like icicles. But it's kind of mind-blowing because they're made out of rock. And it's acid that has melted the rock. It's just kind of crazy to think about because they look like ice and they look fragile, but they're not. It's like this crazy erosive acid that's caused them. So it's just incredible to kind of wrap your mind around. There were some formations that looked like, they call it like Swiss cheese or like a sponge, which was also, caused by that acidic erosion and the water that kind of was in the cave before and then pulled out. So that was a really great part. Another part, if you listen to my last podcast, was that I've really struggled to with just having my dog with me in the national parks, not letting dogs, and I understand you cannot have a dog in a cave. That would be crazy. But my Airbnb host here in Carlsbad was amazing. She was so accommodating. They let me just keep Quincy at the house while I went to the cave. And they were really kind and accommodating about that. And I tried to ask more Airbnb hosts if that would be okay. And check with them. And I want to say like a couple of them so far have been like, that's fine. And then a couple of them have been like, absolutely not. And a few of them have like worked with me. Like one is going to walk Quincy while I'm at the park, which is so kind and so nice. And I'm so grateful for. I just wish more of the parks would let you take your dog with you, or Airbnbs would have an option of like a dog sitter or kennel or something nearby. So those are the best parts of my trip to Carlsbad and Carlsbad Caverns. I think the worst part was the claustrophobia and the smell in the cave. But honestly, it is just, as far as the claustrophobia, it's just an hour if you're going at a good pace. You can see everything really, really well. And so an hour, if you can just kind of mind over matter for an hour, like a plane flight, I do the same thing. If you can do a flight on a plane for an hour, then you can definitely do Carlsbad Caverns. And I think it'll help that you're prepared to know that it kind of smells a little bit. You'll be prepared and you'll be better able to handle it. I definitely think you should go. It's really, really cool and well preserved, and it's different from the other parks because it's not outside, it's underground. And that's really neat. The next place that I'm going is White Sands National Park. And it's basically all sand dunes. So I can't wait to tell you about that. If you've ever been to Carlsbad Caverns or White Sands National Park, let me know. Leave suggestions or comments below and tell me what you liked the best, what you didn't like the best. Anything that is a must-do? Do you have any suggestions for traveling with the dog and going to the parks? I would love to hear it. Until next time, I wish you happy travels wherever you may go.